Hey YouTube, Blade Brothers here, bringing another video to add to the Kukri series. What I have here is a sort of more economical Kukri style machete. It's the Cold Steel, as you can see here, Cold Steel Kukri Plus Machete. It is a machete, so the blade is not as thick as you would normally see for a kukri, but it is definitely a kukri style design, as you can see here. And just for a basis of comparison, bringing back my traditional kukri here, and you can see a notably thick blade here for more of a hacking, chopping. This is more designed to be sort of a machete style, so it's a thinner blade, but it still has the sort of recurve here for the kukri style, and it has also following a more traditional flared end here. It has a little hole for a lanyard. It's a polypropylene type of handle, and the blade itself is 1055 carbon steel. Also coated with a kind of matte black coating, which is rust resistant. It is made in South Africa, so if we can zoom in here, you can see here, Cold Steel, South Africa. So it's a South Africa product, or manufactured in South Africa. Really like it has a little flare here for a sort of wrist hand guard, because as I mentioned before, sometimes if you're not familiar with the use of a kukri, it could put your hand not having like a guard here or a hilt could slip in certain situations. But in this case, well, if you're using it properly, the force should drive the blade forward rather than backward to your hand. So the only exception is if you were to try to do stabbing motions, then there is a possibility your hand might slip. So this is sort of a nice welcome addition here, in the sense that even if you were to use a stabbing motion, your finger would not go beyond and then onto the blade. The sharpening is very crude based on what I see, because I have not sharpened this blade. It came from the manufacturer, and you can see here with the close-up, you can see that there's some crude like burring on the edges here. Not a major thing if you're using it purely as a machete, but you can also sharpen it relatively easy. 1055 is a sort of softer steel by comparison, compared to, like, say, 1095. Of course, it varies based on how it's tempered, but in general, it should be relatively easy to sharpen. You could use one of those sharpening pucks, which I do have. I just don't have it on hand here to show to the camera. But you could use the sharpening pucks usually used for sharpening axes, or a round style sharpening stone, similar to this one I have. This one's from Kershaw. This one, you can kind of screw it on like this, and it's not flat. As you can see here, it's got a little bit of curvature. It's kind of ovular in shape. There's also types that are completely round, but this is a diamond grit, so you could, because it's curved, you can draw it towards the blade in such fashion to sharpen it. And you can see I can kind of already start to remove some of these burrs like that. And you can see there's already some of the burrs being removed there. So I could spend maybe like 5 minutes or so kind of bringing down the burrs and bringing this to a sharper edge. So not a major thing. These types of sharpening rods are very good because I use them a lot for like my karambits because of the curvature. You want a slight curved style stone to conduct your sharpening versus something flat like this. It's not as easy. I mean, you could still do it. You have to be very careful and try to angle it better. This one's from Sharpall. So it has a coarse and fine grit diamond. And this one actually, this side you can also use for stropping, which you can see how I've done this. So this type of stone is good. This type of rod, I should say, is good in the sense that it's great for like kukris as well as karambits. And this one's from Kershaw. And it's a travel style. You can basically, sorry about the squeaking, but see, made in China. Fairly cheap, not too expensive, but these are good to have for karambits. If you buy karambits and kukris like I do, definitely would come in handy. So as a machete, this is fine. The kukri style definitely would lend itself to be a good machete, just as a traditional kukri has been used to clear brush and whatnot. Could also be used in combative situations. I think that's one of the reasons why they had the little finger guard here. So also Cold Steel does make a trainer version. You can see here, here's the, I actually purchased together. So this is the training knife. It's just plastic, non-edged, completely dull. And it also has the finger guard here, but it's relatively similar in size to the machete here. So if you want to actually use this machete for combative purposes, as I always recommend, train with a trainer. Whether it's, just your normal drills and whatnot, especially if you're doing like two-man drills, definitely encourage the use of a trainer. I do not recommend using a live blade for training purposes, especially with a partner. This one's quite well made. It's very sturdy. It's definitely a lot thicker. This is reminiscent of a real kukri in terms of thickness, but I guess you have to make it that thick, otherwise it will kind of bend. But this one's relatively sturdy compared to the blade itself. It's very stiff though, so it actually holds up quite well. Overall length of this blade, this kukri knife machete, is about 18 inches, about 13 inches overall in terms of blade length, so about 5 inches in terms of the handle, 17.3 ounces. So point of balance is not too far off. I think it's being a kukri, it should be more at the flare end, the sweet spot. So you can kind of get a sense that the balance is more like around here. If I try to find it, but of course it's kind of a little bit awkward because it's right around here. I can feel it, but because of how the handle is and how far off the center line it is, it's very hard to reach that balance point. But just judging by how it kind of balances, it's around like about here in terms of balance. So which is exactly where the sweet spot area of a kukri is, so it makes sense. Overall design isn't bad. It feels good in the hand with the grip. And it's really just made to be a chopper. I mean, a machete type chopper. I wouldn't like do a whole lot of, splitting of firewood with this because of just, how thick it is. I'd much rather go with a real kukri in terms of width or blade thickness. But in terms of clearing brush, I think this would work just fine. Comes with a Cordura style sheath. only one carry option here, which is just, you know, down your belt, kind of strapped close to the thigh. It'd be a dangling type, and then when you actually have it sheathed, it does go with the finger guard inside the sheath area, and it uses 2 snaps here. There is no hole in the sheath. Typically my preference is if it's any type of like cloth type sheath, especially they already bothered to reinforce the tip area here. I'd prefer to have like a hole for draining liquid if, you know, you were to have like are using it in rainy circumstances. And I would have preferred a more than one carry option, or at minimum this type, because of the length, so having it strapped to your belt might make sense, but I would have preferred at least some like holes in this area to kind of, I could put a paracord and have it strapped on my thigh rather than having it dangle and flip and flop while walking and whatnot. So slight modifications I would recommend for it. Considering the overall price of this machete, about $30, so I wouldn't bother to invest into like a Kydex sheath for it. I think to have like a custom Kydex sheath for this, it costs just as much as the knife itself, so it wouldn't be worth it. But it serves its purpose. I mean, if you're ever in the market for like a machete style knife, the Kukri design of this particular machete is quite appealing, and sort of what I, you know, the ongoing sell point that I always or argument I have with a Kukri is that you can use it for utility as well as for defensive or combative usage. So you could argue that any machete can be used as a weapon, sure, but a Kukri style, I mean, Kukri as a weapon is quite renowned by the Gurkhas and whatnot, so you can't really dispute that. And if you get, you know, a trainer and you actually train with it, you know, build up that muscle memory, you know, flowing drills and whatnot, I think this as a, you know, a sort of last ditch weapon wouldn't be a bad one. And it's, you know, like I said, around $30, not a bad, you know, buy. So hope you like this video. As always, we always encourage your comments. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Blade Brothers signing off. Have a good one.